Spring Point Ledge Lighthouse sits in South Portland, Maine, and lies on the southern entrance to beautiful Casco Bay. By the mid-1800s, Portland Harbor had become one of the leading ports in all of America. The state and local economies were primarily marine-related, and a safe and usable harbor became paramount to maintaining those economies. Off from Spring Point was a series of ledges that continued to ground ships, especially during low tides. In 1895-96, $45,000 was appropriated to build a fifth-order caisson lighthouse. Experienced builder Thomas Dyer from New York City received the bid to build the iron casing lighthouse that sits on the ocean floor. The 77-foot-high lighthouse, 54 feet above high tide, was completed in 1897 and was first lit by keeper William A. Lane on May 24, 1897. As the harbor grew, an increasing number of ships and boats were moored in South Portland and Portland. The winds and tides continued to cause damage, and in 1951 a breakwater was built to calm the waters and protect these boats. The breakwater consists of 50,000 tons of granite from Biddeford and Wells and is approximately 900 feet long. Today, Spring Point Ledge Lighthouse sits on the campus of Southern Maine Community College, one of the state's largest institutions of higher learning. Being a gateway to Casco Bay and busy Portland Harbor, the site was also the home of Fort Preble, named after Portland native Edward Preble, Commodore of the American Navy during the American Revolution. This premier site allows thousands of visitors annually to visit Fort Preble, the breakwater, and Spring Point Ledge Lighthouse. Join us as we walk out to the breakwater and explore this unique and beautifully maintained lighthouse, Spring Point Ledge Light.
Lighthouse is built out of steel forged at the Allentown Rolling Mills in Pennsylvania. This was shipped to Maine and assembled here in South Portland. Notice the Roman numerals on the base of the caisson. There are 2 rows of cast iron with cement in between them, and this forms the foundation of this lighthouse. It is built right off the ocean floor. The lighthouse is 77 feet tall and rises 54 feet above the high tide mark. Once you take the ladder up to the first floor, you can notice a canopy overhead. This canopy was replaced in 2004 with the new one made out of steel. As you look at the canopy, notice that the outer edge has a gutter that surrounds the lighthouse. This collects rainwater, which is funneled through pipes that lead to 2 cisterns in the basement. As we walk around the deck, notice the hole in the floor. Oh my, don't fall in. This was the privy. Some walls were eventually built, and it exited right into the ocean. This was not uncommon at this time. There are 2 sets of davits along the roofline of the canopy. These were equipped with pulleys to raise and lower the dories used to get out to the lighthouse, along with all the supplies. Let's step inside to the first floor. This is the galley. It's also known as kitchen, but on a boat or a lighthouse, it is a galley. This was the focal point of the lighthouse. This lighthouse actually was a stag lighthouse, which meant it was for the keeper and his assistant only. Families lived on shore. This lighthouse was serviced by men only. The sink has a hand pump, which was used to pump water from the cisterns in the basement up to the sink. There was a coal stove for cooking and heating. Notice the cupboard. While this is not original, it does resemble a cupboard which would have been in that location. If we were to take the stairs down, you would see the basement. The rooms are divided for storage, coal and kerosene and various other supplies which were needed to keep the light on. Now there are batteries that store the power generated from the solar panels on the rocks right outside the lighthouse. The light and the foghorn are both powered by these solar panels.
Let's go up the stairs now to the second floor. Here is where the head lighthouse keeper lived. The head keeper's quarters gave him a measure of privacy unavailable to the assistant keeper. Because the stairs passed outside of this room, the head keeper's quarters had a door. He also had the luxury of a walk-in closet built beneath the stairs and very similar to the one located in the galley. He probably also had a chest of drawers and a sea chest or duffel bag to store his belongings. Currently, the room has been furnished as it might have been at the turn of the century, though we don't really know for sure what it looked like, as no photographs have surfaced of the lighthouse's interior during that period. The room did have its own coal stove and sash windows for ventilation and access to the galley roof. He was paid about $540 per year, about $16,000 in today's money, and was responsible for directing the upkeep of the lighthouse and passing unannounced inspections twice a year. The lighthouse had to be kept in tip-top shape. Possibly the most famous lighthouse keeper was Gus Wilson. He served from 1918 to 1934, retiring when he was 70 years old. He died in Gray, Maine at the age of 86. During his time as lighthouse keeper, he carved over 5,000 decoys, seabirds, and other exotic animals. He sold many in Portland for about 75 cents each, although he gave many away. Recently, some were sold at an auction for more than $100,000, with a whopping record of $248,000. Poor Gus never saw that much money for his artistic carvings. Some of his decoys are now displayed in several prominent museums.
Welcome to the Assistant Keeper's Quarters. As you can see, this room is not as nice as the head keeper's quarters. The windows are much smaller and there's no privacy, thanks to the ladder that's used to go up to the watch room. We have the room set up as a museum. We have a Fresnel lens. The Fresnel lens was invented in 1822 by the French physicist Augustin-Jean Fresnel. It is a huge improvement over mirrors. Each prism in the lens takes the light entering it and sends it straight out. Instead of going out in all directions, the light is concentrated in one direction. That is why the light from the tiny 4-watt bulb in this lens looks so bright. The original lens in Spring Point Ledge Light had 6 circular sections called bullseyes. The bullseye sends out a beam of light. The lens was mounted on a clockwork mechanism that caused it to rotate. The viewer sees a flash of light every time the beam sweeps by. How do you know what lighthouse you're approaching if all you see in the fog or darkness is a flash of light? You count the number of seconds between each flash. Every lighthouse has its own pattern of flashes, called the characteristic. The current characteristic of this lighthouse is 1 flash every 6 seconds.
I'll be presenting the next 2 levels of the tower. Is the watch deck and the lantern room. As you make your way to the second ladder through the assistant keeper's quarters, you end up on the watch deck, or upper gallery. Most guests step out and are wowed with the view. Forts, the islands, and yes, 2 other lighthouses. This area is the working area of Spring Point. Watches are conducted here, daily tasks, winding the clockwork for the lanterns and the fog bell, maintenance, and of course keeping it shipshape. As you recover from the view, the thing you can overlook is the big bell. A short history of the fog bell. It was made in Boston 10 years before the lighthouse was built. It weighs 1,000 pounds and is cast bronze. Originally, it hung outboard of the gallery rail and would strike by way of a clockwork mechanism in the watch room. When electricity became available, the bell was moved to the present position. Before the tower was electrified, the source of light was kerosene lamp inside the lens. 5th order rotating Fresnel lens. The nature of kerosene is dirty and puts out a lot of soot. The keeper would have to clean the lenses and the windows to remove the soot so it would burn brightly. The wick also had to be trimmed and kerosene had to be added to the lamp. So this was a constant job during the hours of operation. Trimming of the wicks is where the keepers have got the nickname wickies. 1973, the lantern became a Lexan lens and has a bulb in it now. Coast Guard maintains the light and the fog signal because it is still considered an aids to navigation and it keeps us vigilant. Another unusual feature of Spring Point Light is the sector section. It has a sector box which has been removed and has now been replaced with 2 red panels and a white panel between the two. This white panel points down the channel, emitting a small section of light. As the ships come in, they keep this light in view. They see the white light, keep the white light in vision. The red section means danger. So if they lose sight of the white and see the red, they have to correct it to stay in the channel. Back to the bell. Although it's not being used as a fog signal anymore, the ringing of the bell has been embedded in the marine tradition since the early days of sail. Ship's bell was used for watch changes, announcements, ceremonies, and honoring dignitaries.